The year was 2347, and humanity had finally reached the stars. For centuries, Earth's people dreamed of exploring the vastness of space, and now they were living that dream. The United Earth government had built a powerful fleet of warships to protect its interests in the galaxy. These ships were equipped with advanced weapons, shields, and engines capable of traveling faster than light. But despite their strength, Earth's leaders were cautious. Humanity was still new to the galactic stage, and no one wanted to provoke a conflict with an unknown alien species. Commander Jack Ryan stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, one of Earth's most advanced warships. He was a tall man with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. His uniform fit perfectly, showing off his rank and years of service. Jack had spent most of his life in space, commanding missions both small and large. He was a man who believed in doing what was right, even when it was hard. Today, however, he faced a decision unlike any other. A strange signal had been detected by Earth's deep space listening posts. It wasn't random noise or interference, it was a message sent deliberately across the stars. The signal came from a distant star system called Zeta 9, located near the edge of explored space. When decoded, the message was clear: "Help us, they are coming. Save us if you can." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving behind only static. Jack listened to the recording for the third time, his brow furrowed in thought. Sitting at the communications console nearby was Lieutenant Lavra Bennett, a young woman with short brown hair and a focused expression. She had been the first to intercept the signal and bring it to Jack's attention. "Sir," she said, turning toward him, "we've analyzed the language. It's not human, but it's close enough to translate. Whoever sent this is intelligent." "Desperate," Jack nodded slowly. "Do we know anything about Zeta 9? He asked. Lavra shook her head. "Not much. It's outside our usual patrol routes. There are a few planets in the system, but none of them are on record as being inhabited. Until now, anyway." Jack leaned back in his chair, thinking. If the message was genuine, then some civilization was in trouble. Ignoring such a plea felt wrong. On the other hand, sending ships into uncharted territory carried risks. What if this was a trap? What if the signal was meant to lure Earth's fleet into danger? Before making a decision, Jack contacted Admiral Carter, the commander of Earth's military forces. Using the ship's secure communication system, he explained the situation and shared the translated message. Admiral Carter, a grizzled veteran with decades of experience, listened carefully before responding. "Commander," he said, his voice firm, "this could be nothing, or it could be everything. We can't ignore it. Prepare your fleet and head to Zeta 9, assess the situation, but stay alert. If there's real trouble, we'll need to act fast." With the Admiral's approval, Jack gave the order to prepare the fleet. The Eclipse was joined by two other warships, the Thunderbolt and the Vanguard, as well as several smaller escort vessels. Together, they formed Task Force Alpha, ready to respond to whatever awaited them at Zeta-9. As the ships prepared to leave, Jack gathered his senior officers for a briefing. Alongside Lavra, Chief Engineer Daniel Harper was present. Daniel was a stocky man with a scruffy beard and a knack for solving problems. He ensured that all systems aboard the Eclipse were functioning properly, from the engines to the weapons. Also in attendance was Sergeant Ethan Cole, leader of the ship's Marine Detachment. Ethan was a seasoned soldier, calm under pressure and respected by his team. Jack addressed the group. "We're heading into unknown territory. This mission could be a rescue operation, or it could turn into a fight. Either way, we need to be ready. Lavra, keep monitoring communications. Daniel, make sure the ship stays operational no matter what happens. And Ethan, prepare your Marines. If we encounter hostiles, we'll need every advantage we can get." Everyone nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. As the meeting ended, Jack returned to the bridge. The countdown to departure began, and soon the fleet was underway. Jumping into hyperspace en route to Zeta 9 during the journey, Jack found himself unable to relax. He paced the bridge, staring out at the swirling colors of hyperspace. Something about the message troubled him. It wasn't just the plea for help, it was the urgency, the desperation in the words. Whoever had sent it knew they were running out of time. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far more dangerous than anyone realized. Lavra approached him, holding a data pad. "Sir, I've been analyzing the signal again," she said. "It's faint, almost like it was transmitted using low-power equipment. That suggests whoever sent it didn't have access to advanced technology, or maybe their resources were already depleted." Jack frowned. "So we're dealing with survivors?" "It's possible," Lavora replied. "But there's something else. The signal contains fragments of additional information coordinates, energy readings, things like that. It's incomplete, but I'm piecing it together. If I can finish decoding it, we might have a better idea of what we're facing." "Good work," Jack said. "Keep at it." Hours passed as the fleet traveled through hyperspace. Finally, they emerged near Zeta 9. What they saw took everyone by surprise. The star system was a graveyard. Planets lay scorched and lifeless, their surfaces cratered and blackened. Debris fields floated in orbit around shattered moons. It looked as though a massive battle had taken place here, reducing entire worlds to rubble. Jack stared at the viewscreen, his jaw tightening. "Scan the area," he ordered. "Look for signs of life." The crew worked quickly, scanning the planets and debris fields. At first it seemed hopeless. Then a faint signal appeared, coming from a moon orbiting the outermost planet. It was weak, but unmistakably artificial. "There's something there," Lavra announced. "It's not much, but it's definitely a distress beacon." Jack made the call. "Set course for that moon. Let's see who or what is waiting for us." As the fleet approached the moon, sensors detected structures buried beneath its surface. Someone had survived, hiding underground while their world burned above them. Jack ordered the Eclipse to enter orbit while shuttles were prepared to investigate further. Before long, a team consisting of Jack, Lavra, Daniel, and a squad of Marines led by Ethan boarded a shuttle and descended to the moon's surface. The landing site was bleak, covered in gray dust and jagged rocks. In the distance, they could see the entrance to a bunker carved into the side of a hill. As they approached, figures emerged cautiously from the shadows. They were humanoid, though taller and thinner than humans, with pale skin and luminous eyes. Their clothing was tattered, and they carried crude weapons. Despite their appearance, they seemed wary rather than hostile. One of them stepped forward, raising a hand in greeting. He introduced himself as Kale Voss, leader of the Deathworlders. His voice was soft but carried authority. "You've come," he said, addressing Jack. "We weren't sure you'd receive our message." Jack nodded. "We did." "Tell me what happened here." Kale sighed deeply, his expression grim. "We call ourselves the Deathworlders because our homeworlds are harsh and unforgiving, but we adapted. We survived. Then they came." He paused, searching for words. "They call themselves the Devourers. They are relentless, merciless. They consume everything in their path: resources, life, knowledge. Entire planets have fallen to them. We tried to resist, but we were overwhelmed. Billions died, only a few of us remain." Jack listened intently, his mind racing. The Devourers sounded like a nightmare, a force beyond comprehension. Yet here were survivors, clinging to hope despite unimaginable loss. "What do you need from us?" Jack asked. Kale looked at him earnestly. "Your ships, your weapons. Help us hold them off, even for a little while. If we can buy enough time, perhaps we can find a way to stop them permanently." Jack glanced at his team. Lavra met his gaze, her expression determined. Daniel adjusted his tool belt nervously, while Ethan tightened his grip on his rifle. "They were ready, despite the odds. We'll help you," Jack said firmly. "But understand this, we're taking a big risk. If we fail, Earth will be next." Kale nodded solemnly. "We understand. Thank you." As the group returned to the shuttle, Jack felt a mix of determination and dread. They had arrived to answer a cry for help, but now they were stepping into a war unlike any humanity had ever faced. The question was whether they could make a difference or if they were simply delaying the inevitable. The fleet prepared for battle. knowing that the fate of an entire civilization and possibly Earth itself depended on their actions. The Deathworlders bunker was a grim reminder of the devastation that had swept through their star system. Jack Ryan and his team followed Cale Voss deeper into the underground complex, their boots crunching against the rough stone floor. The air was cold and stale, carrying the faint smell of burned metal and damp earth. Flickering lights illuminated narrow corridors lined with makeshift barricades and scorch marks. Testament to past battles fought within these walls. Cale led them to a large chamber that served as the command center. Holographic displays hovered above crude consoles, showing maps of the surrounding area and tracking the movements of enemy forces. A group of Deathworlders worked tirelessly, their faces pale but resolute. Some glanced up at the humans, their luminous eyes filled with curiosity and hope. "This is all that remains of our people," Cale said, gesturing to the room. "We've been holding out here for weeks, scavenging what we can from the ruins above, but supplies are running low, and the devourers grow stronger every day." Jack studied the holograms carefully. They showed clusters of red dots representing enemy units moving across the surface of the moon. The devourers were relentless, constantly probing the defenses of the bunker. It was only a matter of time before they broke through. "What do you know about them?" Jack asked, turning back to Cale. "How do they fight? What are their weaknesses?" Cale hesitated, as if searching for the right words. "They are not like us. They are biomechanical, part machine, part organism. They adapt quickly, learning from every encounter. Their smaller drones are fast and deadly, while their larger constructs are nearly indestructible. And then there's the Overmind, the central intelligence controlling them all. It coordinates their attacks, making them even more dangerous." Lavra Bennett stepped forward, her datapad in hand. "If we can disrupt the Overmind, maybe we can cripple their forces." "Have you tried targeting it?" Cale shook his head. "We don't have the weapons or technology to reach it. It's hidden deep within their main hive on another planet in the system. Even if we could get close, we wouldn't stand a chance." Jack frowned, considering the options. With Earth's fleet, they might be able to hold off the enemy long enough to evacuate the survivors. But evacuating wouldn't solve the bigger problem. If the devourers weren't stopped, they would continue spreading, consuming everything in their path, including Earth. "We'll fortify your position," Jack said finally. "Our ships will provide orbital support, and my Marines will reinforce your defenses. Once we stabilize the situation here, we'll plan a counterattack." Cale nodded gratefully. "Thank you. Your help gives us a fighting chance." As the humans prepared to leave the bunker, Cale called after Jack. "Commander, I must warn you, these creatures, they are unlike anything you faced before. Do not underestimate them." Jack gave a curt nod. "Understood." Back aboard the Eclipse, Jack gathered his senior officers for a strategy meeting. The mood in the briefing room was tense. Everyone knew the stakes, and no one underestimated the danger ahead. Lavra updated the team on the latest intelligence gathered from the Deathworlder systems. She highlighted key locations where enemy activity was concentrated and identified potential weak points in their formations. Daniel Harper, the chief engineer, reported on the status of the fleet. "The ships are in good shape, but we're stretched thin. We've got 3 warships and a handful of escorts. If things go sideways, we won't have much room for error." Sergeant Ethan Cole chimed in, his voice steady. "My Marines are ready, sir. We'll dig in alongside the Deathworlders and hold the line, but we need clear objectives and plenty of firepower." Jack nodded, appreciating the input. "Here's the plan. We'll deploy fighters to patrol the skies and intercept enemy swarms. The Thunderbolt and Vanguard will maintain high orbit, providing covering fire. Meanwhile, shuttles will ferry supplies and reinforcements to the bunker. Ethan, you'll take charge of ground operations. Coordinate with the Deathworlders and establish defensive perimeters." Everyone agreed, and preparations began immediately. The fleet moved into position, its presence casting a shadow over the desolate landscape below. Fighters launched from the hangars, streaking toward the horizon. Marines boarded shuttles, their weapons checked and rechecked. Engineers worked around the clock, reinforcing hulls and calibrating weapons. As night fell over the moon, the first signs of trouble appeared. Sensors detected movement near the bunker's perimeter, hundreds of small, insect-like drones skittering across the surface. They were flanked by larger constructs, towering machines bristling with weapons. The Devourers had come to finish what they started. Enemy forces approaching, Lavra announced, her voice sharp. Estimated time to contact, 5 minutes. Jack gripped the railing on the bridge, his knuckles white. Sound general quarters. All hands to battle stations. Alarms blared throughout the ship as the crew sprang into action. Gunners manned turrets, pilots readied interceptors, and engineers monitored power levels. On the surface, Ethan and his Marines took up positions behind barricades. Their rifles trained on the advancing swarm. The attack came swiftly. Drones poured over the ridges, their metallic bodies glinting in the dim light. Larger constructs followed, unleashing devastating volleys of energy blasts. Explosions rocked the battlefield as Earth's fighters engaged the swarm, weaving between the enemy units and firing missiles. The Eclipse and its sister ships opened fire from orbit, their beams slicing through the darkness. Inside the bunker, Deathworlders fought alongside the humans, their makeshift weapons proving surprisingly effective against the biomechanical invaders. Kale himself joined the fray, wielding a plasma rifle with precision. Despite their bravery, the defenders were outnumbered and overwhelmed. Enemy drones breached the outer defenses, forcing the Marines to fall back to secondary positions. Ethan radioed back to the Eclipse. Sir, we're holding, but barely. We need air support now. Jack didn't hesitate. Lavra, target those breaches. Hit them hard. The Eclipse unleashed a barrage of missiles, obliterating entire waves of drones. The explosions lit up the night, casting eerie shadows across the battlefield. For a moment, the tide seemed to turn. The Devourers faltered, their advance slowed by the relentless assault from above, but the reprieve was short-lived. Reinforcements arrived, massive carriers descending from orbit, disgorging endless streams of drones and constructs. The Marines and Deathworlders dug in deeper, their ammunition running low. Ethan shouted orders, rallying his troops as the enemy closed in. In the chaos, Daniel Harper noticed something unusual. One of the larger constructs emitted a pulsating signal, coordinating the movements of nearby units. Sir, he said, addressing Jack, I think that's some kind of local control node. If we destroy it, we might disrupt their coordination. Jack acted immediately. Pilots, focus fire on that construct. Take it out. The fighters dove toward the target, dodging enemy fire as they unleashed their payloads. The construct exploded in a brilliant flash, sending shockwaves rippling through the battlefield. For a brief moment, the enemy forces hesitated, their synchronized attacks breaking down, seizing the opportunity. Ethan led a countercharge, driving the remaining drones back toward the ridges. The Deathworlders cheered, their spirits lifted by the sudden reversal, but the victory was fleeting. More carriers appeared on the horizon, and the Devourers regrouped. Preparing for another assault, back aboard the Eclipse, Jack watched the battle unfold, his expression grim. They had bought some time, but the enemy was too numerous, too relentless. He turned to Lava. Any progress on finding the Overmind? She shook her head. Not yet, sir. But I'm still analyzing the data. There might be clues in the transmissions. We intercepted earlier. Jack nodded. Keep working on it. We need a way to end this. As dawn broke over the moon, the fighting subsided temporarily. Both sides regrouped, tending to their wounded and repairing damaged equipment. In the bunker, Kale approached Jack, his face etched with exhaustion. You've done more than we could have hoped for, he said. But this isn't over. They'll return, and next time we may not survive. Jack placed a reassuring hand on Kale's shoulder. We're not giving up. Not yet. We'll find a way to stop them. Kale looked at him, gratitude in his eyes. Then let's make sure we're ready when they come. With renewed determination, the humans and Deathworlders prepared for the next wave. The fleet remained vigilant, its sensors scanning for any Sign of movement. Marines fortified their positions, setting traps and laying mines. Engineers worked tirelessly, ensuring every weapon and shield was operational. As the hours passed, an uneasy calm settled over the battlefield, but everyone knew it wouldn't last. The Devourers were out there, waiting, watching. And when they struck again, the cost would be higher than ever. Jack stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, staring out at the scarred landscape below. He thought about Earth, about the billions of lives depending on him to succeed. Failure wasn't an option. Whatever happened next, they would face it together, with courage, with strength, and with hope. The second wave of attacks came without warning. One moment, the battlefield was eerily quiet, the only sounds being the hum of machinery and the distant groan of settling debris. The next, the horizon erupted with movement. Thousands of drones surged forward, their metallic bodies glinting under the pale light of Zeta 9's distant sun. Behind them loomed the massive carriers, each one a floating fortress bristling with weapons and spewing reinforcements. Jack Ryan stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, his eyes glued to the viewscreen. The enemy forces were overwhelming, too. Many to count. He clenched his jaw, his mind racing through options. "All hands prepare for full engagement," he ordered, his voice calm but firm. Alarms blared throughout the ship as the crew scrambled to their stations. Lieutenant Lavra Bennett monitored the sensors, her fingers flying over the console. "Sir, they're deploying new units, larger constructs this time. Heavily armored," she reported. Her tone was steady, but there was no hiding the tension in her voice. Chief Engineer Daniel Harper worked frantically at his station, rerouting power to the shields and weapon systems. "Shields are holding for now, but if they keep hitting us like this, we'll burn through reserves in minutes." Sergeant Ethan Cole's voice crackled over the comms from the surface. "We're pinned down here, sir. Enemy drones are everywhere, requesting immediate air support." Jack didn't hesitate. "Fighters, prioritize close air support. Hit those drones hard and give our ground team some breathing room." Fighters launched from the hangars, streaking toward the moon's surface. Their pilots maneuvered skillfully, weaving between enemy units and unleashing salvos of missiles and energy blasts. Explosions lit up the battlefield, sending shards of metal and fragments of drones raining down. Inside the bunker, Ethan and his Marines fought desperately alongside the Deathworlders. The defenders had set up barricades using rubble and scrap metal, creating makeshift fortifications. Despite their efforts, the enemy kept coming, swarming over every obstacle. Ethan shouted orders, directing his team to hold the line while Deathworlders fired plasma rifles and hurled grenades. Cale Voss himself joined the fight, wielding a heavy weapon that sent waves of energy crashing into the advancing swarm, but the tide was turning against them. Drones breached the outer defenses, forcing the Marines to fall back deeper into the bunker. Ethan radioed back to the Eclipse. "Sir, we can't hold much longer. They're pushing through the gates." Jack turned to Lavara. "Any updates on the Overmind? If we don't find a way to disrupt it, we're fighting a losing battle." Lavra shook her head, frustration evident on her face. "I'm still analyzing the data, sir. It's complex, but I think I'm close to pinpointing its location." Jack nodded grimly. "Keep working on it. We need that intel." On the surface, the fighters continued their assault, buying precious time for the ground forces. But the Devourers adapted quickly, deploying countermeasures that neutralized Earth's weapons. Larger constructs emerged from the carriers, their armor impervious to conventional attacks. Jack watched helplessly as one of the fighters was torn apart by enemy fire, its pilot ejecting just moments before impact. "Damn it," Jack muttered under his breath. He turned to Daniel. "Can we modify our weapons? Anything to punch through that armor?" Daniel hesitated, then nodded. "It'll take some time, but I can recalibrate the plasma cannons. If we focus all available power, we might be able to penetrate their defenses." "Do it," Jack said, "and make it fast." Below, Ethan and his team retreated to the inner chambers of the bunker, setting up a last-ditch defensive line. The Deathworlders followed, their faces etched with exhaustion but determination. Cale addressed the group, his voice firm despite The chaos. This is where we make our stand for our people. For our future, Ethan nodded, gripping his rifle tightly. Stay sharp, everyone. We've got one shot at this. As the enemy closed in, the Marines prepared for a final push. Ethan rallied his troops, shouting encouragement even as explosions rocked the walls around them. Hold the line! Don't let them break through. Back aboard the Eclipse, Daniel completed the modifications to the plasma cannons. Weapons are ready, sir, he announced. One good shot should do it, Jack gave the order. Target the largest construct. Let's see what these upgrades can do. The Eclipse unleashed a concentrated beam of plasma, striking the lead. Construct with devastating force. The creature staggered, its armor cracking under the assault. A second blast tore through its core, causing it to explode in a fiery inferno. The shockwave rippled across the battlefield, scattering nearby drones and disrupting the enemy's advance. For a brief moment, the tide seemed to turn. The Devourers faltered, their coordination breaking down as they struggled to adapt to the unexpected firepower. Ethan seized the opportunity, leading a countercharge that drove the remaining drones back toward the gates. The Deathworlders cheered, their spirits lifted by the sudden reversal, but the victory was short-lived. More carriers appeared on the horizon, disgorging endless waves of reinforcements. The Marines and Deathworlders dug in deeper, their ammunition running dangerously low. Ethan radioed back to the Eclipse. Sir, we're hanging on by a thread. If we don't get reinforcements soon, we're done for. Jack knew they couldn't sustain the fight indefinitely. He turned to Lavra. What about the Overmind? Any progress? Laura's eyes widened as she stared at her console. Sir, I think I've found something. There's a signal emanating from one of the planets in the system, a strong, centralized frequency. It matches the patterns we've seen in their command structure. This has to be it. Jack leaned closer, his heart pounding. Coordinates? Lavra nodded, pulling up a map on the view screen. It's deep inside hostile territory, but if we can reach it, we might be able to disable the Overmind. Jack made a decision. Prepare a strike team. We're going after it. Ethan's voice crackled over the comms. Sir, you can't leave the fleet unprotected. What happens if they attack while you're gone? I'm not leaving the fleet, Jack replied. I'm taking the Eclipse. You stay here and hold the bunker. Keep them busy while we hit. The Overmind. Ethan hesitated but finally nodded. Understood, sir. Good luck. With the plan in motion, Jack assembled a small team to accompany him on the mission. Alongside him were Lavra, Daniel, and a squad of elite Marines. As the Eclipse broke away from the fleet and headed toward the designated planet, Jack felt a mix of determination and dread. This was their best and possibly only chance to end the war. The journey was fraught with danger. Enemy patrols roamed the space between moons, forcing the Eclipse to navigate carefully. Sensors detected clusters of drones and constructs, orbiting the target planet, guarding the Overmind's location. Jack knew they would have to fight their way through. As they approached the planet, the ship shuddered under the weight of incoming fire. Enemy contacts closing in. Lavra shouted, her fingers flying over the console. Multiple drones inbound! Jack gripped the railing, his voice steady. Return fire. Take out as many as you can. The Eclipse unleashed a barrage of missiles, obliterating several drones in quick succession. Pilots launched interceptors, engaging the swarm in dogfights that lit up the darkness. The Marines manned turrets, picking off stragglers and protecting the ship's vulnerable flanks. Despite the chaos, they managed to break through the blockade and enter the planet's atmosphere. Below, the landscape was a twisted nightmare of biomechanical structures fused with natural terrain. Towering spires pulsed with energy, connected by sprawling networks of organic cables. At the center of it all stood the Hiva, massive, pulsating mass that dominated the horizon. That's it, Lavara said, pointing to the view screen. That's the Overmind, Jack nodded. Prepare for landing, everyone gear up. This is it. The shuttle descended into the heart of the hive, dodging bursts of anti-aircraft fire. When they touched down, the strike team disembarked, weapons drawn. The air was thick with heat and humidity, carrying the stench of burning metal and decay. Strange, insect-like creatures scurried across the ground, retreating into shadowy crevices as the humans advanced. Jack led the way, his rifle sweeping left and right. "Stay alert," he warned. "We don't know what we're walking into." The interior of the hive was a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers, each one more alien than the last. Walls pulsed rhythmically, as if alive, and eerie shrieks echoed through the corridors. The team moved cautiously, avoiding traps and ambush set by smaller drones. Finally, they reached the core chamber. In the center of the room floated the Overmind, a grotesque amalgamation of flesh and machinery, its body covered in writhing tendrils and glowing nodes. Its single eye-like orb focused on the intruders, emitting a low, resonant hum. "You shouldn't have come here," a voice boomed inside their minds, cold and calculating. "You cannot win." Jack stepped forward, his weapon trained on the creature. "We'll see about that." The Overmind lashed out, sending waves of energy crashing toward them. The team dove for cover, returning fire with everything they had. Plasma bolts struck the creature's body, causing it to writhe in pain. But it wasn't enough. The Overmind healed itself almost instantly, regenerating damaged tissue with alarming speed. Daniel noticed something unusual, a cluster of nodes, glowing brighter than the others. "Sir, I think those are its control centers. If we destroy them, we might cripple it." Jack N. The destruction of the Overmind had an immediate and profound effect on the Devourers. Across the battlefield, their forces faltered, their synchronized attacks breaking down into chaotic bursts of uncoordinated aggression without the central intelligence guiding them. The biomechanical creatures became disoriented, wandering aimlessly or lashing out in confusion. It was as if the hive mind that bound them together had been severed, leaving behind a swarm of directionless machines. Back aboard the Eclipse, Jack Ryan watched the view screen with a mixture of relief and disbelief. The enemy ships that once dominated the skies were now retreating, their formations crumbling. Smaller drones spiraled out of control, crashing into each other or exploding mid-air. Larger constructs froze in place, their weapons silent before collapsing into heaps of inert metal and organic material. "It's working," Lavra Bennett said softly, her voice tinged with awe. "They're falling apart." Jack nodded, though his expression remained cautious. "Don't let your guard down yet. We don't know how long this will last or if they'll recover." But for now, the tide had turned decisively. The Deathworlders, who moments earlier had been fighting for survival, began to emerge from their bunker, their faces lighting up with hope. Cale Voss led a group of survivors onto the surface, where they surveyed the devastation wrought by both the Devourers and humanity's counterattack. Despite the wreckage surrounding them, there was a sense of triumph in the air. Sergeant Ethan Cole radioed back to the Eclipse from the ground. "Sir, we've secured the area. Enemy activity is minimal. What are your orders?" Jack took a deep breath before responding. "Start evacuating the civilians. Get them to safety. And make sure your team stays vigilant just in case." "Yes, sir," Ethan replied. His tone was calm but carried the weight of exhaustion. They had all been pushed to their limits, but the mission wasn't over yet. Not until every survivor was safe. As shuttles ferried Deathworlders to temporary shelters aboard the fleet's larger vessels, Jack turned his attention to assessing the damage. The Eclipse itself bore scars from the battle burn marks on its hull, scorched panels and sections of armor that would need extensive repairs. Other ships in the fleet reported similar conditions, though none had sustained critical damage. Still, the cost of victory weighed heavily on Jack's mind. Too many lives had been lost, not just among the humans, but also among the Deathworlders who had fought alongside them. Chief Engineer Daniel Harper joined Jack on the bridge, his face streaked with grease and sweat. "We'll need weeks to fully repair everything, sir," he said. "And even then, some parts will have to be replaced entirely. This fleet's seen better days." "You did good work, Daniel," Jack replied. "Without your upgrades to the plasma cannons, we wouldn't have stood a chance against those constructs." Daniel managed a tired smile. "Just doing my job, sir." While the engineers worked tirelessly to stabilize the fleet, Lavra continued analyzing data from the destroyed Overmind. She sat at her station, her brow furrowed in concentration as she sifted through fragments of information recovered during the strike mission. Something about the creature's final moments intrigued her, a faint signal it had emitted just before collapsing, almost like a distress call. "Sir," she said, turning to Jack, "I think I've found something." Before the Overmind died, it sent out a transmission. "I'm still decoding it, but it looks like coordinates." Jack frowned. "Coordinates to where?" Lavara hesitated. "It's hard to say for sure, but based on the patterns, it might point to another hive or possibly a backup Overmind." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you telling me there could be more of these things out there?" "It's possible," Lavara admitted. "This one mentioned something about nodes during our confrontation. Maybe it wasn't the only one controlling the Devourers. If that's true, then destroying this hive might not have ended the threat completely." Jack clenched his jaw. He had hoped the destruction of the Overmind would bring closure, but now it seemed they might only have bought time. Still, they couldn't ignore the possibility of another hive. Humanity had already come too far and paid too high a price to turn away now. "Keep working on it," Jack instructed. "If there's another hive, we need to find it before it becomes a problem." For the next several hours, the fleet focused on recovery efforts. Medical teams treated wounded soldiers and civilians, while engineers patched up damaged ships. Supplies were distributed to the Deathworlders, many of whom were weak from hunger and dehydration after weeks of hiding underground. Cale Voss personally thanked Jack and his crew, promising that his people would never forget Earth's bravery. "We owe you our lives," Cale said, his luminous eyes filled with gratitude. "Not just for today, but for giving us a future. When we rebuild, we will honor your sacrifice." Jack shook his hand firmly. "You earned this victory as much as we did. Together we stopped them. That's something worth remembering." As night fell over the moon, a strange calm settled over the battlefield. The shattered remnants of the Devourers lay scattered across the landscape, their once menacing forms reduced to lifeless husks. Fires smoldered in the distance, casting an orange glow over the horizon. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was quiet. Jack stood alone on the observation deck of the Eclipse, staring out at the stars. The weight of command pressed heavily on him, but so did a sense of pride. Against overwhelming odds, his team had succeeded. They had faced an enemy unlike any humanity had encountered before, and they had prevailed. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Lavara approached quietly, holding her datapad. "Sir, I've finished decoding the signal," she said. "It's definitely coordinates. There's a planet listed. It's deep in uncharted space, far beyond Exeta 9. Jack glanced at her. "Do you think it's another hive?" "It's likely," Lavara replied. "The signal matches the same frequency we detected earlier. Whatever's there, it's connected to the Devourers." Jack sighed, rubbing his temples. "We can't ignore it. If there's another Overmind, it could regroup and send reinforcements. We'd be right back where we started. What do you want to do?" Lavra asked. Jack straightened, his resolve firming. "We go. But not blindly. First we regroup. Repair the fleet, resupply, and gather intel. Then we head to those coordinates and finish what we started." Lavra nodded. "Understood, sir. I'll start planning the route." Before heading back to her station, she paused. "Sir, do you think we're ready for whatever's waiting for us out there?" Jack looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "No one's ever truly ready for something like this. But we have no choice. If we don't stop the Devourers now, they'll keep coming. And next time, we might not be so lucky. The journey to the new coordinates would take days, even with the fleet traveling at maximum speed." During that time, the crew worked tirelessly to prepare for whatever lay ahead. Weapons were recalibrated, shields reinforced, and supplies restocked. Marines drilled constantly, honing their skills for the inevitable battles to come. Meanwhile, Lavra and her team analyzed every scrap of data they had collected, searching for clues about the nature of the threat. Cale and the surviving Deathworlders offered their assistance, sharing what little knowledge they had about the Devourer's origins. According to their legends, the creatures had once been part of an ancient empire that sought to conquer the galaxy. Over time, however, the empire collapsed, leaving behind fractured remnants that evolved into the biomechanical horrors humanity now faced. They were never meant to exist, Kale explained. Their creators abandoned them, leaving them to fend for themselves. Over centuries, they grew twisted, driven mad by isolation and hunger. Now, they consume everything in their path, desperate to fill the void left by their creators. Dick listened intently, piecing together the puzzle. So they're not just mindless killers, they're remnants of something greater. Something broken, Kale nodded. Yes, but that doesn't make them any less dangerous. If anything, it makes them more unpredictable. As the fleet neared the designated planet, tension mounted. Sensors revealed a world shrouded in thick clouds, its surface obscured from view. Energy readings indicated significant activity below, suggesting the presence of another hive. Jack ordered the fleet to remain in orbit while a small recon team descended to investigate. This time, Jack decided to lead the mission personally. Alongside him were Lavra, Daniel, and a squad of Marines, including Sergeant Ethan Cole. As their shuttle entered the planet's atmosphere, visibility dropped sharply, forcing them to rely on instruments rather than visual cues. The air outside was dense and acidic, requiring the team to wear full environmental suits. When they landed, the scene was eerily familiar. Towering spires of biomechanical material rose from the ground, pulsating with energy. Strange, insect-like creatures scuttled across the terrain, vanishing into shadowy crevices as the humans advanced. The air crackled with static electricity, making communication difficult. "This place gives me the creeps," Daniel muttered, adjusting his helmet. "Stay focused," Jack reminded him. "We're here to gather intel, not sightsee." The team moved cautiously, avoiding traps and ambush set by smaller drones. After hours of searching, they discovered what appeared to be the entrance to the hive, a massive archway covered in writhing tendrils. Beyond it lay a labyrinth of tunnels. The fleet emerged from hyperspace near the edge of explored space, its ships battered but intact. The journey had been long and grueling, with repairs continuing even as they traveled. For days, the crew worked tirelessly to ensure every system was operational, knowing that their next encounter could be their last. Despite the exhaustion, there was a sense of purpose aboard the Eclipse and the other vessels. They had faced death and prevailed not once, but twice. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Jack Ryan stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. He thought about the battles they had fought, the lives they had saved, and the sacrifices made along the way. Each victory had come at a cost, and he carried those losses with him like a weight on his shoulders. But he also felt pride in his crew, in humanity's resilience, and in the alliances they had forged. The Deathworlders had taught them that survival wasn't just about strength. It was about unity, courage, and hope. Kale Voss approached quietly, his tall frame silhouetted against the soft glow of the ship's interior lights. "Commander," he said, his voice calm but tinged with emotion. "I wanted to thank you again for everything." Jack turned to face him, offering a small smile. "We couldn't have done it without your people. You fought alongside us, risked everything. That's what made the difference." Kale nodded, his luminous eyes reflecting the starlight. "We've learned much from you, Commander. About bravery, about standing up to darkness when it seems impossible. When we return home, we'll rebuild not just our cities, but our spirit. And we'll remember Earth's kindness." Jack placed a hand on Kale's shoulder. "You're stronger than you know. Your people will rise again?" For a moment, the two leaders stood in silence, gazing out at the vastness of space. Then Kale excused himself, leaving Jack alone with his thoughts. He knew the alliance between Earth and the Deathworlders was only the beginning. If humanity hoped to thrive among the stars, they would need allies, friends willing to stand beside them in times of crisis. Today, they had earned that trust. Back on the bridge, Lieutenant Lavra Bennett monitored the fleet's systems, ensuring everything was ready for the next phase of their mission. Though the immediate threat of the Devourers had been neutralized, The coordinates she had decoded pointed to another potential hive deep in uncharted territory. It was a daunting prospect, but one they couldn't ignore. "Sir," she said, addressing Jack as he entered the room, "we've plotted a course to the new location. It'll take several days to reach it, assuming no complications." Jack nodded. "Good work, Lavra. Keep me updated on any changes." As the fleet prepared to jump into hyperspace once more, Jack gathered his senior officers for a final briefing. Chief Engineer Daniel Harper reported that the ships were holding together, though some systems remained fragile. Sergeant Ethan Cole assured him that the Marines were battle-ready, despite their fatigue. Everyone understood the stakes and the risks. "We've seen what these creatures are capable of," Jack began, his tone serious. "They adapt, they learn, and they don't give up. If there's another hive out there, we need to destroy it before it becomes a problem. But we can't rush in blindly. We'll scout first, gather intel, and plan carefully. Our priority is survival, not just ours, but everyone's." The team nodded in agreement. They had learned the hard way that underestimating the Devourers was a fatal mistake. This time, they would be prepared. Days passed as the fleet traveled. Through the void, the hum of the engines lulling the crew into a restless rhythm. Repairs continued around the clock, and drills kept the Marines sharp. Lavra spent hours analyzing data from the previous encounters, searching for patterns or weaknesses in the Devourers' behavior. She shared her findings with Jack, who listened intently. "There's something strange about their hive structure," Lavra explained, pointing to a holographic display. "Each one seems to operate semi-independently, but they're connected by a network of signals. If we can disrupt that network, we might be able to disable multiple hives at once." Jack frowned thoughtfully. "Do you think it's possible?" "It's risky," Lavra admitted. "But if we plant a virus in the right place, one designed to target their communication systems, it could spread throughout the network and shut them down permanently." Jack considered the idea. It was bold, dangerous, and untested, but it might be their best chance to end the threat once and for all. "Work with Daniel and the engineering team. Develop a prototype. We'll decide how to deploy it once we arrive," Lavra saluted. "Yes, sir." When the fleet finally reached the designated planet, the scene was eerily familiar. Thick clouds obscured the surface, and energy readings indicated significant activity below. Jack ordered the fleet to remain in high orbit while a recon team descended to investigate. This time, he included both humans and Deathworlders in the mission, recognizing the value of their combined expertise. As the shuttle touched down, the air outside was dense and toxic, forcing the team to rely on environmental suits. The terrain was barren, littered with jagged rocks and twisted metal. Strange, insect-like drones scuttled across the ground, retreating into shadowy crevices as the team advanced. "This place feels wrong," Daniel muttered, adjusting his helmet. "Like it's alive." "It probably is," Ethan replied grimly. "Stay sharp." The team moved cautiously, following Laura's scanner readings toward the source of the energy signal. After hours of navigating treacherous terrain, they discovered a massive structure embedded in the side of a mountain. Its surface pulsed with an unnatural light, and tendrils of organic material snaked outward, fusing with the surrounding rock. "That's it," Lavra whispered. "The hive." Jack signaled for silence as they approached the entrance. Inside, the walls glowed faintly, casting an eerie green light over the corridors. Strange noises echoed through the tunnel's clicks, hisses, and low rumbles that sent shivers down their spines. The deeper they went, the more hostile the environment became. Drones attacked in waves, forcing the team to fight their way forward. The Deathworlders proved invaluable, using their knowledge of biomechanical technology to disable traps and bypass obstacles. Kale himself took charge of a critical junction, leading a group to clear the path while Jack and the others pressed onward. Finally, they reached the core chamber. In the center of the room floated another overmind, a grotesque amalgamation of flesh and machinery, its body writhing with tendrils and glowing nodes. Unlike the previous ones, this creature appeared partially dormant, Its eye like orb flickering weakly. It's dying, Lavra observed. But it's still active enough to pose a threat. Jack nodded. Plant the virus. Let's finish this. Lavra. And Daniel worked quickly, attaching a device to the nearest node. The screen on their console lit up as the program began uploading. Progress bars filled slowly, each passing second feeling like an eternity. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout. The chamber. The overmind stirred, its tendrils lashing out violently. Drones poured into the room, surrounding the humans and Deathworlders. Jack raised his weapon, shouting, "Hold them off! We're almost done." The team formed a defensive perimeter, firing relentlessly as the enemy closed in. Ethan led the charge, rallying his troops with shouts of encouragement. The Deathworlders fought valiantly, their makeshift weapons proving surprisingly effective against the biomechanical invaders. Finally, the upload completed. "It's in!" Lavra shouted. "Let's go!" The team retreated, dodging falling debris as the hive began to collapse. Explosions rocked the tunnels, sending shockwaves rippling through the structure. They barely made it to the shuttle, scrambling aboard just as the ground beneath them gave way. Through the viewport, they watched as the mountain erupted in flames, consuming the hive in a fiery inferno. Back in orbit, the fleet celebrated their victory. Sensors confirmed that the virus had spread throughout the network, disabling multiple hives simultaneously. For the first time in months, the galaxy felt safer, or at least, safer than it had been. Admiral Carter hailed them upon their return to Earth, praising their bravery and ingenuity. "You've done humanity proud," he said. Not many would have taken on such a mission, let alone succeeded. Jack accepted the commendation humbly, knowing the credit belonged to his entire team. As the fleet docked, he addressed the crew one final time. "This wasn't just a mission," he said. "It was a test of who we are and what we're capable of. We faced fear, loss, and uncertainty, but we didn't back down. Because of that, we've given ourselves and others a chance at a better future." Later, as Jack stood on the observation deck of the Eclipse, Lavra joined him. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Jack smiled faintly. "We keep exploring. There's always another horizon." And so, Earth's warships stood ready not just as defenders, but as pioneers charting a new destiny among the stars.